What is going on, guys? So today what I want to talk about is how in my last video with Mikey, we mentioned and slightly discussed how there is a possibility that Jack could be coming into the picture now, and there could possibly be some kind of altercation between him and Luffy and friends. During this, I mentioned 2 points that I think could potentially happen in this story. The first one being that Luffy sees Jack and is just like, okay, I'm gonna fucking annihilate this guy, and he doesn't exactly one-shot him, but pretty easily takes him out of the picture. And I know that this is kind of crazy and it's totally speculation, but it's just something that I said could be a possibility with the amount of experience and power that Luffy has now. And then I also mentioned the possibility, which is the one I would prefer, that maybe Zoro would take on the challenge. Now, we can talk about how this would make sense in the plot, and I don't really think it's that far-fetched anyway, but we can talk about that a different time. What I want to focus on is whether or not it's possible that Zoro could defeat Jack, or even really fight him at all. Now, I have already spoken multiple times in past videos about how strong-ish I think Zoro is, and I even made a whole video dedicated to talking about how strong I think he is. And pretty much the answer I always give is, I think he's extremely powerful, probably very close to Luffy, and was even maybe, this is pretty out there, but there's a possibility that he was at one time stronger than Luffy. However, I really can't say definitively which one of these is true, because we've seen so little from him post-time skip. Not to mention, we haven't even seen him use his Sharingan yet, so we don't know if it's a base Sharingan, a Mangekyu, or if he actually has gone as far to acquire Senju DNA and now has a Rinnegan. We really have no idea, and we don't know how much more powerful that could make him if he does have any of those. So, it's like, you know, what do we do from here? So then, since I've already mentioned it so many times, I don't really want to go into how strong Zoro is, but let's first of all talk about how strong Jack is based on what we've seen so far. So first and foremost, we know that Jack is a Yonko commander of Kaido's crew, and I think that he is most likely either the second or third strongest of the 3 calamities. I lean towards him being the second strongest because I believe in my theory of X-Drake currently being a calamity, and then only Queen would be stronger than Jack, but I could also see it, you know, being a Jack, Queen, King situation. That's far from impossible. We also know that he was able to solo Cat and Dog at least to a stalemate, and they were pretty much switching off, having like 12-hour rests at a time against him while it was a multiple day-long fight. So he was at a pretty big disadvantage, yet he was able to hold his own to pretty much a stalemate, which then of course he had to bring in the gas for because he was like, fuck this. But, I mean, he didn't lose to them in any way, shape, or form. And what we know about those guys is both that they were on Roger's crew, which doesn't really necessarily mean anything. They could have just been along for the ride, but at the same time, you know, maybe they weren't. Maybe they were actually pretty useful on that crew. I don't think that they're like gods or anything, they're no Rayleigh, but I think, you know, it is definitely useful information that they were on his crew for a period of time. And also importantly, it is said that the members of Zou are all like peerless fighters. They're all very strong just by birth because they are minks and whatnot. I mean, just look at Peckham's and Carrot and Pedro. They're all very powerful characters, yet at the same time, these 2 are the 2 strongest members of Zou. So they have to be pretty powerful, and I would like to put them at a higher tier sub-commander level, such as like Oven, Daifuku, and Perospero. So for this guy to solo both of them, with them being able to take 12-hour rests in the middle of the fight, and he just keeps going and never gets a chance to rest, he's got to be pretty goddamn powerful and have some unbelievable endurance. And the last thing that we really need to consider is taking into account his Yonko commander status, we can kind of power scale him to other Yonko commanders we've seen, such as Cracker, Smoothie, Katakuri. I don't even really like to go into the Whitebeard commanders a lot of the time because we have Marco, who in my opinion is the strongest of Yonko commanders, at least at this point in the story. And then the ones below him just kind of fall off hard. Like, don't get me wrong, they definitely have their title with the exception of Ace, but like Jozu and Vista, I feel like don't even compare to Marco in terms of power, so I think they're really weird. It's like Marco is too powerful to use as an example of a Yonko commander, and they're all just a little too weak. So I really like what was established in Whole Cake Island when we had Cracker, Smoothie, and Katakuri. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to see anything from Smoothie, so, you know, whatever that is. But we got a lot from Cracker and Katakuri for sure. And I mean, if Jack is going to be on a similar level as those 2, my god. I mean, Cracker was complete monster. He gave Luffy the heart. I mean, he really pretty much beat Luffy, like, let's be real. Of course, don't get me wrong, I think Luffy was at the time overall stronger. He just happened to be hard countered. But still, I mean, that was pretty impressive by Cracker for sure. And then if we're talking about Katakuri, I mean, like, jeez, I'd like to imagine that Katakuri probably would not even have that hard of a time defeating his brother Cracker. I mean, I could really see it being a, like, mid-diff fight at best. I cannot even see it being high. So it goes without saying that there is a massive amount of variance in power between different Yonko commanders within a crew. And with Luffy being, by Katakuri's own admission, on his level, I think it should be pretty obvious that Zoro is not going to be, like, considerably weaker than Luffy. I mean, it could definitely be noticeable, it could be decisive for sure, but he can't just be millions of leagues below him. If Luffy is on a level near Katakuri, I'm not saying he's necessarily stronger, I'm not saying he's weaker, I think they're right around the same level. I mean, Katakuri being significantly stronger than Cracker should put Zoro at the very least on the Yonko commander level. This isn't really that important in this conversation, but I think it's worth mentioning that, like how I said, I think Luffy was stronger than Cracker at the time, although he was completely countered by him, and that's why he was kind of defeated by him. Zoro, on the other hand, would completely counter Cracker. I mean, Zoro and Luffy's attacks are pretty much the opposite, so it makes sense. And I think Zoro would have absolutely annihilated Cracker. So if we can all agree that Zoro is most certainly on some level at Yonko Commander status, then there is most certainly a conversation to be had on whether or not he is strong enough to defeat Jack. And so then what we need to do here is wonder how much stronger is Luffy than Zoro. And the number that I've pretty much been working with is if Luffy is 100, then Zoro is probably, in my opinion, and again, this is not fact, this is just my opinion, this is how I think it could be. I think Zoro would be about a 98 or 99. I think he's right there with Luffy. There definitely is a difference between the two. I think Luffy would win in a duel. However, I think Zoro is right there. It would be like a battle between Akainu and Aokiji that lasts 7 days and whatnot. I've said that a million times, but I think that's how it would be between the two. So then, when I look at Katakuri and Jack and compare the two, if I have Katakuri at 100, then I like to think that Jack is probably somewhere around 94 or 95, which might seem pretty severe, but I mean, we've seen a decent showing from the two of them, and I just like to think that if Katakuri was the one facing Cat and Dog, I think he would have actually been able to defeat them. I mean, not just is his Devil Fruit significantly better than Jack's, I mean, at this point, really, Jack's is kind of useless. He didn't even really use it to fight against Cat and Dog. He went out of that form. He pretty much only uses it to just destroy objects that don't move, obviously. So it's not that useful of fruit, especially compared to Katakuri's, who is one of the best we've seen in terms of paramecias. And then on top of that, of course, Katakuri has his godlike observation haki. So I like to think that Katakuri is definitely a good amount stronger than Jack. So then, if Katakuri is 100 and Luffy is 100, which makes Zoro 98 or 99, and Jack is a 94-ish, then whoop! I really do. I think Zoro could defeat Jack. I know a lot of people probably think this is just way too early to be saying that, but I don't know, guys. I'm seeing it. The only real flaw with this theory, I guess you could call it, I would call it more of a speculation, but the only real problem I think there is with it is that it completely relies on my assumption that Zoro is only slightly weaker than Luffy, although I think that it's a pretty fair assumption at this point. But another thing too to consider is even if he is maybe a good amount weaker, maybe if he's even a 95, really that low, I do not see that for Zoro, but even if he is that low, that would still, in my estimation, put him just above Jack. So I really do think Zoro would have this one in the bag. I think it would be high to extreme difficulty, but I think he would definitely be able to pull it off. These numbers I've generated are also the reason when we were in that video before, pretty much why I was saying, like, yeah, I could see Luffy seeing Jack and just being like, get the fuck out of here, and just really kind of bullying him around. I could absolutely see that happening with these numbers. I mean, couldn't you see like Luffy going in there and thinking, I've dealt with a top Yonko commander at this point. This is nothing in comparison. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would end up being a full-blown battle, but I think from the very beginning, it would be obvious that Luffy was going to win the fight, and I think Jack would be like, fuck, I should probably just get out of here or something. So yes, that is my very long answer to, do I think Zoro could take on Jack? I do really believe it's possible. A lot of people probably disagree and think it's just way too early to be assuming that, but again, do not forget we have not seen Zoro's Sharingan either. So we don't know how much power that's going to bring to the table, and it's really something that should be factored in. So that pretty much wraps up this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about this video. If you totally agree, you think Zoro could take on Jack right meow as we speak, or if you think I'm just complete moron, I'm totally wrong on this one and there's no way, it is just not time. Zoro will be there one day, but not quite yet. Also, while you're at it, if you have not done so already, make sure to check the description and hit the link to my Discord. I got a lot of members in there. We're always talking about One Piece and different shows as well. If there's a particular one you want to talk about, you can talk about it in general, or even suggest it in the server suggestion channel that maybe we add it in if it's a pretty popular show or something like that. I also pretty much respond to any time someone DMs me or ats me in the Discord, as long as it's not complete nonsense. So yeah, I mean, if you want to talk to me, it's definitely something worth trying out. With that all being said, I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.